Hi everybody, this is Mr. Williams, here to talk to you about comma rule number 2. These are actually two rules that just are very similar, so we combine them into one slide. One is using commas with subordinating conjunctions and introductory bits. In both of these cases, we're talking about how to separate these items off from the rest of the sentence. So first of all, subordinating conjunctions, and please note the submarine in the bottom, that's not an accident. We'll talk about that in a second, but you want to be thinking about a few things before we start. First of all, a punctuation mark, such as a comma, is needed when there is an audible pause in the sentence. When you're reading out loud, if you stop to take a breath, there needs to be some sort of punctuation mark. And when we're working with commas here, you may want to consider a comma as that option, since these are going to be comma worksheets. Remember from the previous rule that conjunctions connect words or groups. Use that con prefix there to remind yourself of words like connect, congruity, continuation, all those kind of words could help. But we have a new word here, and that's subordinating or subordinate, which means of less or secondary value. And think of that prefix sub like a submarine. It goes below the water. Subordinate or substitute or anything like that, that's less or secondary value. And that's going to be important here when we're looking at independent clauses that use subordinating conjunctions. So like coordinating conjunctions, there are two complete ideas connected with these conjunctions. When we use subordinating conjunctions, you'll have two complete thoughts. Unlike coordinating conjunctions, subordinating conjunctions make the clause after the conjunction subordinate to the other clause. So for these two examples right here, before they went to the store, they went to lunch. After they went to the store, they went to lunch. Notice the pause where that comma is. But in both examples, they went to lunch is the most important part of the sentence. Whether it was before, after, or while they were at the store, they went to lunch is the main part of the sentence. Now I want to remind you that subordinating conjunction clauses are less important than the rest of the sentence. So to prove this point, to see if your comma makes sense, just remove the part of the sentence that's separated off by the comma. If the sentence still works, like in these cases, then you probably have the comma in the right space. And this works for a lot of our comma rules too. If you cross out everything before or after or separated by commas, you can see if you have a complete sentence. And that's usually a good sign that you have a comma in a good spot. Or at the very least, if you can cross out the commas or the words that are blocked off by commas and the sentence doesn't make sense, there is the possibility that something might be wrong with your grammar. So just to give you that color-coded graph, before they went to the store, they went to lunch. The conjunction that's subordinating comes first, followed by one complete thought, then the other. So they went to the store in red. That could be a complete sentence. They went to lunch is also a complete sentence. Just that word before makes one of these complete thoughts completely subordinate or lesser, and we can get rid of it without really affecting the sentence they went to lunch. You want to be aware of that when you're thinking about how to use your commas. Now there is a trick to this because I see this grammar error all the time, especially with the word because. The comma is used only when the conjunction comes before the sentence. You do not need a comma if the subordinating conjunction is in the middle of the two ideas. So if you look at this here, before they went to the store, they went to lunch. I want to make sure there's a comma there because I don't want these words to be next to each other. Having store and they there without a comma, if someone read this without a pause, before they went to the store, they went to lunch, that's not the way it's supposed to go. Having those back-to-back nouns or noun-pronoun doesn't really make sense. There's no comma needed though if I flip this around. They went to lunch before they went to the store. You only need a comma to clearly separate the main ideas. And not only that, remember, everything after before is subordinate. It's lesser. And since at the end of the sentence, I don't need to break that off. The comma should be your clue that everything before the comma is not as essential to the sentence, or not as important at least, as the next part after the comma. Now I want to make two important notes, one which you're going to like because I feel like English teachers lie to students at early ages. First of all, unlike fanboys, these conjunctions make sense at the start and middle of the sentence. As you just saw, I could have my subordinating conjunctions at the start, the middle, and it still makes sense. Another side note is that because is a subordinating conjunction, which means that it can start a sentence as long as you follow the rules. If you use the word because at the start of the sentence and don't have these rules in place, you could have an incomplete thought. Looking at the example below, because I like football, I watch every NFL playoff game on television. I like football is a complete sentence. I watch every NFL playoff game on television is a complete sentence. The word because is helping me see how they're connected, but also showing me that I like football is less important. You have to be keeping all this in mind as you're going through and putting your commas in the right places and creating your phrases with conjunctions. So that's it for our subordinating conjunctions and clauses with commas. But now it's time to talk about introductory bits. So this situation is the same exact rule, although instead of dealing with clauses, we're dealing with tiny little phrases, or just even one-word answers. that would be used with commas at the start of a sentence or even at the end of the sentence sometimes. So here are some examples. And when a sentence starts with a brief answer, a person's name, transitional phrase, yes or no, we're going to separate it off with a comma. So let's just read these examples. Yes, I would like some nachos. Notice the pause there. Jacob, will you please pass the salt? And note that if I had said, will you please pass the salt, Jacob, a comma would still separate Jacob from the rest, just like happy birthday, Jacob, same idea. Afterward, I would like to go to sleep. Screaming, the child ran away from the ghost. For example, Joe is 6 feet tall. In all of these examples, there's a transitional phrase or word, and it's going to be separated from the main sentence, because if I look at the rest of it, I would like some nachos, will you please pass the salt, I'd like to go to sleep, and so on and so forth. These are all complete sentences. The rest is unnecessary, just like an introduction is a transition into the sentence. Now this slide is quick, but I just want to point out that like the subordinating conjunction clauses, to see if your comma placement makes sense, all you have to do is remove the part of the sentence separated off by the comma. If the sentence still works, then you're correct. So just watching this here, like I just did, it looks like we're all set. Even that first sentence I had up there, I can remove that phrase, check the comma. I could even remove the phrase to see if your comma placement makes sense, and I'd still have a complete sentence. So commas are used mostly to separate out sentences, and often the things separated out are unnecessary for the sentence's success as a sentence. You might want to consider that as you're writing sentences in the future and using your commas. And that's it for this video. Once again, there'll be some examples for you to work on, and I'll have the answer key up available for you. So it was a little longer than I meant for it to be, and I apologize, but thanks for watching.